The evening began like any other installment of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert witty political jabs, a few absurd jokes about pop culture, and the ever-reliable charm of the studio audience. The anticipation was even higher than usual. This time, Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex and lightning rod for global headlines, was tonight's guest. She hadn't appeared on live television in nearly a year, and her name alone had sent the show's ratings forecast into overdrive. Asterisk. The crowd erupted into enthusiastic cheers as Meghan walked onto the stage. Dressed in an impeccably tailored navy Alexander McQueen suit, her hair swept back in a neat chignon, she exuded confidence and poise. Colbert rose to greet her, offering a handshake, then pivoting into a side hug that felt half friendly, half formal. Asterisk. Meghan Markle, ladies and gentlemen, he said, beaming at the audience as they settled back into their seats. A duchess, an actress, a podcast host, a mother, a humanitarian. Have I missed anything? Asterisk. A media villain, Meghan added, her smile tight but pointed. The audience chuckled politely, unsure whether it was meant as a joke. Asterisk. Colbert raised an eyebrow. Well, we'll talk about that. Asterisk. They eased into small talk covering her LATEST philanthropic project and her recent appearance at a women's leadership forum. The crowd was engaged, but waiting, everyone knew the real fireworks would come when the subject turned to royalty, scandal, and her ongoing cultural tug-of-war. With the British press asterisk then, about 7 minutes in, Meghan leaned forward. Her voice dropped just slightly. You know, Stephen, people keep asking me if I regret leaving the royal family, she began. But that's not the real question. The real question is, why would anyone stay? Asterisk. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Even Colbert, a master of reading the room, sat upright. That's a strong statement, he said cautiously. Asterisk. I've been silent long enough, she continued. The institution, the so-called firm, isn't about service or tradition, it's about control. It's a centuries-old machine of manipulation that chews people up and sells them as fairy tales. Asterisk. Gasps rippled through the audience. Several crew members turned to look at the control booth. Meghan wasn't just speaking out. She was dismantling live and unfiltered. Asterisk. Colbert tried to gently pivot. Okay, let's slow it down a little. I mean, surely you had support, Harry. Of course, but others too. Asterisk. Meghan shook her head. Support in name only. You're told to smile, to wave, to keep your mouth shut while your identity is shredded in tabloids. They called it dignified silence. I call it sanctioned erasure, or asterisk. Colbert's usually playful demeanor turned cautious. I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear how deep it goes. But also, to be fair, some critics might say, well, that's just the price of royalty. Asterisk. Her eyes flashed. Then it's a price no human being should pay. What kind of modern world tolerates a system where birth determines your worth, where your very existence is spun into propaganda, and when you try to walk away, you're treated like a traitor? Asterisk. The room had gone quiet. The live audience seemingly unsure if they were witnessing a moment of raw honesty or a catastrophic public unraveling. Colbert glanced off stage for a signal. Then back to Meghan. Asterisk. I don't think anyone's questioning your right to speak your truth, he said, trying to steady the tone. But it's surprising to hear this level of candor. Were you planning to say all this tonight? Asterisk. Meghan gave a half smile. Let's just say I'm tired of carefully curated sound bites. Everyone else has had their say. Now it's my turn. Asterisk. And just like that, the tone of the show had shifted. The lighthearted late-night atmosphere had morphed into something closer to a live confessional, charged with decades of resentment, institutional critique, and personal vindication. Asterisk. Colbert, a skilled interviewer but also a late-night comedian who thrives on balance and levity, looked increasingly uncomfortable. I think this might be a good time to go to break, he said with a forced smile, tapping his desk lightly. Asterisk. But Meghan wasn't done. Before we do, let me just say this. When people tell you that tradition must be preserved at any cost, ask yourself whose cost and who benefits? Asterisk. The crowd didn't know whether to applaud or sit in silence. Many just did both, soft clapping mixed with stunned glances. Colbert looked off camera again. Someone backstage signaled with a hand motion. Wrap it up. Asterisk. The feed cut abruptly to a commercial. For those watching at home, the tension was unmistakable. And when the show returned after the break, Meghan Markle's chair. What happened after the commercial break was the kind of thing rarely seen on network Television an obvious attempt to return to normal, but with a tension that hung like a fog no one could dispel. Stephen Colbert returned to his desk alone, his signature grin a little too tight, his eyes darting toward the now vacant guest chair. Well, folks, he said after a pause, live TV always keeps us on our toes. A few hesitant chuckles came from the audience, but the room's energy was noticeably off. Colbert shuffled his notes, clearly stalling. We had planned to speak with Meghan Markle a little longer, but, well, we'll have to save that conversation for another time. No further explanation. No attempt to bridge the awkwardness. The next segment began with a pre-recorded comedy sketch, but even the most committed viewers could sense it was filler. Online, the situation had already exploded. By the time the show wrapped just before midnight. Twitter, now X, was on fire. Within 30 minutes of the live interruption, over 1 million tweets had been posted under the trending tag, #MeghanUnfiltered. Clips from the broadcast, particularly Meghan's more scathing lines, "It's not tradition, it's control, and I'm tired of curated soundbites," were already racking up millions of views. TikTok was even faster. Users reposted the now viral segment with overlays like "Meghan drops the royal mic and Colbert's face says it all." Others speculated whether she had been escorted out by security, silenced by network executives, or if she had walked off on her own terms. Backstage sources later whispered to Page 6 that Meghan's remarks had sent producers into full panic mode. According to one assistant producer who chose to remain anonymous, Meghan had not warned the team about her intended commentary. "We thought she was going to talk about her new foundation and maybe touch on the Netflix doc," they said. "What we got instead was ... live fire." Colbert himself was said to be blindsided. A staffer on set claimed he attempted to keep Meghan from going too far, but ultimately had no choice but to cut to break. "He's a comedian, not a crisis manager," the source added. This was not what the network signed up for. Meanwhile, reactions across social media and news outlets were sharply divided. Supporters hailed Meghan as brave and uncompromising. "She's the only one in that royal circus who had the guts to walk away," and